Time, why you
Okay, and welcome back. Excuse the hair, excuse the face. It's just one of those days where I need to get my review done no matter what I look like. Today's book is Time After Time by Tamara Ireland Stone. It is the sequel to Time Between Us. And yes, I did get that right. I always forget which order they're in. If you haven't seen or read The Time Between Us, go back and watch my first review. This book takes place from Bennett's point of view. It essentially picks up where The Time Between Us left off. We do get glimpses into what we had seen from Anna's point of view in the first novel, which I always like, especially when it's like a romance and we get the companion novel from the companion's point of view. I've always been like, what are they thinking? So I enjoy getting that background knowledge. Allergies and context do not mix. Life lessons from Beth. Straight off the bat, this book is an exploration of his traveling abilities for both us and him. He is further exploring and testing his boundaries. It is also an exploration of his relationships with Anna, with his friends, and with his families. My personal thoughts are this whole traveling ability is still underdeveloped. In the first book, it is introduced that his boundaries are, I don't change timelines, I don't do do-overs, and then we see that under Anna's influence starts to do so. From what we see here, he starts having adverse effects from these do-overs, and we get a basic explanation as it's because of do-overs. But we don't get any development as to why. In my opinion, it seems like it could more so be because he's traveling more than he ever has, and perhaps for longer periods of time. But it seems that when he does his good deeds, he feels fantastic. But then when he tries to travel again to see Anna, that is when he has his issues. That also stems from the fact that we don't know why he can travel. In my brain, I was thinking it was genetic, because there is a point in this novel in which he sits Maggie down at Anna's prompting, tells his grandmother the truth because he's been staying with her whenever he travels back in time to see Anna. I, for some reason, was convinced that she was going to be like, you know, I wondered if anybody was going to get that gene. Perhaps like her husband had it or something, not necessarily her. That's not the case. I feel like whatever is going on with him has more to do with the fact that he doesn't know the rules of this ability. As far as we know, nobody else in her world can do this, and so I wished we'd really delved into that. It also goes into Bennett wants to know his future with Anna. There's a point where he's wondering if it's worth being together, like if he is having a negative impact on her and she in certain ways is having a negative impact on him. So he goes into the future to see if they end up together, and spoiler-ish, we see something, but we don't get a resolution on it. What he gleans from it is, if it's gonna work, it's gonna work, and what they need to do is try. But I'm saying, so here I guess is an expanded explanation on this scene, and I know I'm getting so ahead of myself, but you know what, why not spoil things ahead of time for you the way I do for me? He travels back in time because her dad has a stroke. He travels just to see if the dad's okay. At this point, Anna is in college, and he gets no real clue. All we know is that she is with somebody. We go further into the future, and we see that she is now living out of state. She and this boyfriend are coming home. Bennett, in one of these two circumstances, is like, I wonder if it's this guy named Justin, who is a subplot. He can't see this guy's face. He's crestfallen. And then later in the novel, he's like, you know what? I need to try again. He still can't see this guy's face, but he can tell that they are happy and that Anna is enjoying this relationship. Then what happens, because he changes his position from the first time that he come. He gets kicked back before he can see who this person is, which I guess actually that gives us our answer that it has to be him, because he can't have two of him in one timeline at the same time. So, okay, I was wrong because it's been like 3 weeks since I've read this book. In some shape or form, he is involved in Anna's future. But how does that work? Because he is 17 years younger than she is. When he first goes back to 95, she's 17. He was coming from like 2012. So, we work things. But we're back. And the point I was getting to is, for me, the easiest solution here is that, sorry, it sounds so ludicrous coming out of my mouth. I mean, it was ludicrous enough in my head. For them to reunite, to reconnect in his present rather than hers. Because the longest he's ever been allowed to travel was 3 months. What's funny is, try explaining to your family and friends. I mean, maybe his family would understand because they understand his traveling abilities. But just imagine being the family and friends. You're 17 and you bring your girlfriend home. You're like, what's up? This is my 34-year-old girlfriend. How did we meet? When we were 17. In this book, he does reveal, well, he doesn't reveal the truth about what he can do to his friend. But he does tell his friend he is dating Anna. So yeah, imagine when Anna shows up on the doorstep and his friend is there and he's like, this is Anna. She's 34. Yeah, I know I said we were the same age, because we were. I like the message of sometimes you have to make it work. But logistically, it's driving me crazy. It's a conundrum, and I can't wrap my head around it. Plus, when he goes back in time, or forward in time, and he sees them together, we are given the impression that they're the same age-ish. So she's in college, and he's college age too. She cannot travel to his future, which kind of doesn't make sense to me, because if she is still alive in his future, then it's her future too, ergo she should be able to be a part of it. I don't know. Anyways, whatever. That is my little, like, jumping ahead too much shtick. Let's get back to the book so we can be on point. The book opens with Anna approaching Bennett in 2012. In the first book, we've heard all about this mythical letter. He has shown it to her. She has noticed kind of like how he's memorized it, dissected it. This is how we see how Bennett gets the letter. She finds him at the skate park he's always at, and she's like, hey, can we take a walk? She gives him the letter, and she's like, it'll make sense eventually. Then we go to him visiting her. She had been overseas. She'd done like a study abroad for the summer. He comes and visits when she gets back, although he has to lie to his parents because his parents, I don't know, this part I thought was a little wishy-washy. His dad used him for his own financial benefit, while his mom is scared to death that this ability is gonna kill him. I could understand the mom discouraging him traveling, but I was a little surprised that the dad went along with it. It doesn't sound like he went readily, but he was painted as something of a greedy kind of guy. He lies about what he's gonna do, and then he goes and visits her, and he's like, look, I can't stay for long. So what we need to do is we need to make a schedule of events so I know when to come visit you for important things. They do that. He also, at this point, goes to his grandma and tells her the truth, which she kind of freaks out, but in the end, she accepts it. Basically, I guess, because she knew there was something up with him. And Anna had said, look, I can't tell you. Bennett's gonna have to tell you himself. Her plea was like, please tell her, because she's the only one I can talk to about this. But I can't even talk to her about this. When he comes home, I thought it was gonna go somewhere, and it didn't. His dad's like, oh, hey, how was the camping trip? He doesn't like to lie outright about what he's been doing. He kind of likes to lie within reason. Like, if it was hot in Chicago, he's not gonna tell his dad that the weather was terrible when he was camping. And for me, I'm thinking, because I'm a suspicious mind, we know this. I'm like, this is his dad trying to catch him in a lie. To trap him into like, well, I knew you were traveling and you lied to me about it. No. And even with what he says about the weather, I was like, Bennett, I thought you could have made it sound more believable, because it really came off as a situation where the dad was just trying to catch him in a lie. I guess he could have said something a little more on the line without actually lying. No. They run into each other in the kitchen. Dad is eating his breakfast. Bennett watches the news with his dad and sees that there had been an apartment fire and that the children hadn't made it. He feels like his dad sees this as an opportunity for him to do something good with his gift. And because he'd done do-overs in the first book for Anna, he thinks, let me try it. Let me see what can happen. So he's successful. He does what he needs to do in order to let the family know that there is a fire, which is installing a smoke detector. So he goes into the past to rectify things, and then he lives out those remaining days. And so he comes back into the kitchen. He's like super worried. He has no idea if it's worked or not. So he goes into the kitchen. His dad asks him the same question, and he's like, how did I answer it before? And I'm like, oh my gosh. Twice we gave a very watery response. Turns out that what he did worked. And this I thought was really strange, because he does not have a good relationship with his parents. He recognizes the relationships Anna has and how in some ways her timeline is the better timeline for them to be active in, because she has a life, whereas he doesn't have anybody except for his sister, who is a permanent fixture in his life. Even his room looks like a guest room. I was just really surprised that, except for the fact that he's like shocked and in a way really proud and accomplished in what he has done. And he's like, yeah, Dad, I did that. I found it out of character, because his dad has already used him before for his own gain. Who knows what his dad's gonna do this time, knowing that Bennett successfully had a do-over that changed the future. What his dad does do is he starts looking up different incidents that he thinks Bennett can go and do over. Just skipping ahead slightly, he does another do-over in which there had been a father and two daughters riding home from school. This is something he always did, was he would pick them up on his bike and they'd all bike home together. Teenager lost control of his car, hit all three, but killed the dad and one of the daughters. Bennett and his dad concoct this plan. They go back and they fix things and they're super excited. Bennett is so excited that he has got to go tell Anna. He pops in earlier than he'd intended, but he can barely get anything out before he is kicked back. But he's not only kicked back, he's sent into limbo. There's no explanation for what happens. All we know is he loses a day of his life. He was not in Chicago with her. He was not at home with his family. Well, where did he go? We make this huge deal. We have all this going on about how he's having issues with his traveling, but where did he go? This was kind of a culmination. This was a turning point. And it turned nowhere, except it kind of made him more frustrated of his lack of control. Anyways, back home, he's feeling disconnected from his life. He felt temporary in his own life, and with that, he didn't feel a connection to his friends. And now that he has Anna, he was traveling more than ever. So he had no connection to his hometown, to his school, to his family, to his friends. But we start to see his friends because obviously we're spending time with him, and because of his health issues when he travels, he has to stay in the present for a certain amount of time. There's a girl named Megan. We hear about her at the beginning of the book because his friend Sam is asking, are you gonna go to Megan's party? Megan likes you, and Bennett doesn't know this girl, but he's also not interested because he has Anna. But we see Megan threading throughout this novel, and I don't understand why he doesn't just say, I have a girlfriend. I think it would have solved so much, even if she didn't believe him. The fact that he doesn't say anything at all is just gonna make her think she has a chance. I understand that he was uncomfortable revealing Anna to them, Couldn't he at least said, oh, hey, well, there's somebody I met. It doesn't matter who she is. Like, he met someone, so it's not a lie. So I don't understand why Stone didn't just resolve that issue by saying, look, I got a girlfriend. I'm not interested. Instead, he's just like, he doesn't want to give her the time of day and she can't take a hint. And so we keep going around and around. He goes back. Anna's best friend Emma is having her birthday party. So he goes back and Emma tells him, hey, look, Anna told her parents that she was going to sleep over with me tonight. And he's like, what? What they end up doing is he takes her to Paris. They have this great time in Paris. And this is one of those things that Stone does very well, in my opinion, is her setting. She really does a great job at taking you back in time. If you didn't live in the 90s, you kind of missed out. They go on the Eiffel Tower. In 95, they didn't have digital cameras. So he goes to the gift shop and he gets a disposable camera, and you have to wind. Every time you take a picture, you have to wind so that the film refreshes and you can take another picture. So he gets her this camera because she's now become interested in photography. He has no idea how to use it, and I thought that was a great contrast, especially in this day and age. You guys probably don't know how to use a disposable camera or anything that's not digital. As much as they connect to get along, there are distinct differences because they're from different generations. So I really thought that was a fun moment and I quite enjoyed it. While they're in Paris, and I know in my last review, I could not quite figure out what the ending was. And I think that's because I started this one, and so I was mixing things up. This one is where when they're in Paris, they're having this great day. They're watching this soccer match. I think it's a soccer match. There's this one guy who's super animated and has caught their attention, and they're really enjoying him, only for there to be an accident and he gets hurt. Anna is like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. We need to fix it. Let's prevent this from happening. They do a do-over. He does suffer ill effects from it. So after that moment where he lost like a day of his life, he wakes up in his father's study. Well, first, because what he would do when he traveled is he rented a storage unit. He would drive his car, pretending he was gonna go climbing or something. He would park in this storage unit. He would have everything he needs for when he returned, like coffee and water and all that good jazz. When he returns, he's just in bad shape. He's not feeling great. I guess he hits his head when he returns. He hits it on the steering wheel. No. I have no clue what's going on, guys. Forgive me. What I do know is, yes, fact, when he loses that 22 hours, he awakens in his father's study. He is covered in blood. His father finds him, he's freaking out, and the mother has been freaking out. They're trying to figure out, and he's still lying to them about what he did, because the last thing they knew is he had gone up to his bedroom. So that's what's happened. They save the dad and the daughter. He goes up to his bedroom. He travels to see Anna. He gets kicked back, but then he's lost in limbo. And then he returns 22 hours later, covered in blood on the carpet of his dad's office. This is when he reveals what he's been doing. He doesn't reveal anything about Anna. They're like, you have got to stop. Like, this is dangerous for you. So earlier, yes, they discouraged it. They were not happy that he did it. But now they're like, this is unacceptable. But what he does do is, so Anna was upset because he reveals to her that he hasn't told anybody about her. It's more upsetting for her because there's so much that she can't share with others, because like, if they saw a picture of the two of them on the Eiffel Tower, they'd be like, when did you go to Paris? So they know about him, but she can't really share anything about their relationship, whereas his family knows. He can share her. He decides to bring his sister Brooke to meet her. He shows up at a track meet, and because when he got kicked back and he lost that day, he was unable to make it to Anna's homecoming. So he walks up to all the spectators and he approaches her dad, and I was like, you know what, Bennett, you've got some guts here. The dad, I'm loving it. The dad's like, not having anything to do with you. I do not like the way you treated my daughter, and I don't understand why she continues to hang on to you. He tries to mollify the situation. And it's not until Anna comes up that the dad is like, fine, whatever. Bennett says, I brought someone to meet you, and it is my sister. And Anna's kind of mortified because she just ran like however long for cross country. They convince her dad to let her ride with them home. This meet is, it's in another town. It's a couple hours away because they take the scenic route to go back, and they go to like the state park. It's like a, I don't know, 2 to 4 hour adventure, which I thought this was kind of lame because Anna is 100% exhausted. So I was like, you could have done something different, or at least on a different day. What the intent of Anna being with them is, when they finally show up, so the dad's like, sure, fine, you can ride home with them, but you need to be back because they own a bookstore. You need to be back for a shift at 3 or something. They get her home only for her to discover that her dad has had the stroke. So they go to a coffee shop, and then Anna leaves. Bennett then takes Brooke home. Then he joins Anna at the bookstore only to see the ambulance is there and something's wrong and the situation. Their first thought is obviously, let's do a do-over. We need to do a do-over so that you ride home with your dad. Because of course she blames herself, and I'm just like, I don't think she could have done anything for a stroke except get the paramedics there earlier, but they don't have cell phones, so it just depends. I mean, he was obviously in the store, so I guess she could have just hopped on the landline, which reminds me, it was so funny. I had a customer the other day asking about lanyards, you know, the thing teachers wear, and he's like, do you have a landline? And I was like, yeah, I do, but why do you need my landline? Anyways, it made me chuckle. Then they realize they can't do a do-over because Brooke had been there. And this was a good moment because they both were like, look, this was our first solution, and this cannot always be our first solution. But this is when it gets both of them thinking, is this the right relationship for us? Because they've already fought about the fact that she's a secret. There's a moment I was like, yes, Bennett, yes, because I like Anna, and I liked her in the first novel, but there was a moment where she was lost on me because he had said, these are my rules. These are the things that I do and don't do with my ability, and she pushed him to do something that was against his rules. And I felt like she continued to do that. What was the point of Bennett having rules, except that he is kind of now exploring his boundaries? I just don't understand. Like the whole traveling thing is very ambiguous around the edges. So he finally stands up to her and he's like, I broke my rules for you. I didn't want to do it, but you made me do it. I love that he finally said, no, like this is unacceptable. Only for later on in the book, he apologizes. But you had a point. She was forcing your hand because she had emotional sway over you. She was abusing your relationship to have things go her way. That's another tangent, and now we can skip it when we get to that point in the book. They fought, the same with her dad happens, and now Bennett's like, I don't know if this is a good thing. But what he does do, he travels into the future. And the first time he travels is he wants to know if her dad is okay. A couple years in the future, her dad obviously is suffering the ill effects of having the stroke. That was not English. Having a stroke. That's what happens when you speak in passive. That is then when he sees her with somebody, he's like, I kind of want to know more. When he comes home, his friend who he would go climbing with says, hey, let's go climbing. They're on their way up and everything's fine until Bennett gets to the top. And there's this heightened suspense because we know it's been a minute since he's gone climbing, and then they decide to free climb, which means they are just kind of their own anchor. They don't have a set path. There's nobody at the top to hold their weight if something goes wrong. And so I like that we have this heightened sense of danger. but everything is a-okay until Bennett gets to the top and the rock face crumbles under his grip. He falls. He's like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna die. Can I go back into my own past? Can I save myself? In the end, it's not necessary because he lands on a ledge. His friend Sam comes to the rescue, gets him to the top of the rock. They eat, then they go down, and while they're on their way back to the car, he decides to tell Sam about Anna. And of course, Sam's like, there's no need to lie. We all know you were in a rehab. And he's like, why would you think I was in a rehab? Because the mother had tried to come up with some explanation as to why he hadn't been around the previous year. She, I guess, is a bad liar. And so under pressure, she made this cock and bull story. Apparently, she also told someone's mom, and you know how the grapevine works. He's like, but you're my friend, you know me, why would you think I'm in rehab? He tells Sam, and he's like, I feel like I'm putting one foot in front of the other. Maybe this happened before they fought. I don't really know. All that matters is these are all part of the book. It is now Christmas time. He's really angry at Anna and the whole situation. He goes to a party where Megan pops up again because it's her house. She hits on him. He just gets even angrier. I guess it's the whole situation of like, why does he need to keep this stuff a secret? Like, it's just not good for him. He is about to go back to 1995 to break it off with Anna, and he has second thoughts because this is when something gives him pause. So this is when he goes further into the future. So he'd already gone to see that the dad was okay and the dad had a stroke. And then he traveled into the future and he saw that Anna was with somebody, but he didn't have a good vantage point. So now this time is when he goes back to that second future to see things differently, sees what he sees, gets kicked back, and he's like, well, there is a future for us, so I'm gonna go back to Anna and patch things up. And that's basically where the book ends, where we don't have a concrete resolution. All we know is that there's hope for the future. It was not my favorite of the two books. It wasn't bad, but I thought we could have used more depth, and we could have used more of Bennett's life. I like that he continues to do things with Anna, but because the whole traveling thing is still ambiguous, I got tired of all of these issues he was having, and then we never would try to resolve them. I would love to know what you guys think. I always love a good time traveling story. I don't know what it is. I think it's because there's a lot of things in my life I would like to change, or a lot of things in my life I would like to experience that I wasn't alive or old enough for. Do you have any good recommendations of similar type books? And I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye.